I'll never forget the moment my entire world tilted upside down. There I was, standing in my bakery on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, hands dusted in flour, when I opened Instagram and froze. On my screen was a picture of my best friend, Nora, beaming, dressed to the nines, holding up her hand with an engagement ring glistening under the restaurant lights. Not just any ring, my ring, the very same diamond I'd picked out with my ex-husband Sam, back when I thought forever was ours. I could feel the blood drain from my face as customers chatted happily just a few feet away, completely unaware that my chest felt like it had been split open. The caption under Nora's post read, "Sometimes love has been right in front of you all along. When it's real, you just know." And Sam, my Sam, was tagged. I remember laughing, not the good kind of laugh, the kind of laugh that sounds hollow, almost hysterical because your brain refuses to process what your eyes are seeing. I dropped my phone onto the counter, smearing flour across the screen, and just stood there, my body vibrating between rage, disbelief, and heartbreak. 12 years of friendship, 3 years of marriage, all of it shattered in one post. But to understand how I got to that gut punch of a moment, you need to know the backstory. Because trust me, this betrayal wasn't some random twist of fate. No, it was carefully crafted. A masterclass in manipulation that began long before that Instagram announcement. And looking back now, I realize the betrayal didn't start with Sam. It started with Nora. To really grasp the depth of this betrayal, you have to understand what Nora meant to me. She wasn't just my best friend, she was my sister in every way but blood. We met when we were 15, two awkward teenagers sitting side by side in biology class, whispering jokes about our teacher's mismatched socks. From that day forward, we were inseparable. Sleepovers that stretched into sunrise, college nights fueled by cheap pizza and shared dreams, whispered secrets about crushes and heartbreaks. Nora was my person. When my dad had a cancer scare during my freshman year, she was the one who held me as I cried myself to sleep. When I dropped out of law school in a quarter-life crisis and decided to chase pastry chef dreams instead, she didn't laugh or judge. She showed up at my apartment with measuring cups and said, "All right, let's ruin your kitchen together." She was there through every storm, every victory. And when I met Sam, guess who introduced us? Yep, Nora. It was at a house party she dragged me to, claiming I needed to stop living like a grandma. Sam was leaning against the kitchen counter talking about some book he'd read. And Nora, God, this part kills me. She was the one who pushed me toward him. "Go talk to him," she whispered, grinning like a proud matchmaker. Fast forward a few years and Sam and I got married. A small ceremony, intimate and sweet. He had his steady job at a mid-sized firm, and I was running my little bakery that specialized in wedding cakes. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Our cozy starter home, our neurotic rescue cat, Biscuit, the Sunday mornings filled with coffee and lazy laughter. And through it all, Nora was a fixture in our lives. She'd swing by twice a month, usually after some disastrous date, collapsing dramatically on my couch while I whipped up a batch of my stress-baking chocolate chip cookies. Sam would roll his eyes, but always made sure she had a glass of wine in hand. She joked that we were her safety net, her stable place to land after each failed romance. Looking back, I realize now, Nora was never just orbiting my life. She was weaving herself into the center of it. She knew my rhythms, my weaknesses, my joys. And she knew Sam too well. At the time, I thought that was just friendship. But in hindsight, it was preparation. The first cracks in my perfect little world were so subtle that I almost brushed them off. At first, it was just small things, tiny red flags that seemed harmless on their own. Like the way Nora always laughed a little too hard at Sam's jokes, or how she'd linger in the kitchen with him while I was busy greeting guests at one of our dinner parties. I remember one night in particular. I had just finished setting the table, candles flickering, my homemade lasagna steaming in the center, when I walked into the kitchen to find Nora leaning against the counter, sipping wine, her eyes locked on Sam as he stirred the sauce. The look in her eyes wasn't friendly, it was admiring, almost hungry. When she noticed me, she smirked and said, "You're lucky, you know. Men like Sam don't come around often." I laughed it off, joking, "Well, he's mine, so hands off." She just raised her glass, and something about her smile made my stomach twist. Then there were the comments, always little digs wrapped in humor. "Sam deserves someone who appreciates how hardworking he is." Not everyone would stick around when their wife spends 12 hours a day buried in flour. She'd say it with a laugh, but the words stayed with me, festering like splinters under the skin. Sam, on the other hand, began to change too. Nothing dramatic at first, just small shifts. He started dressing sharper for work, buying cologne I hadn't picked out, lingering on his phone late at night. When I asked, he brushed it off. Just emails, just work stuff. But I couldn't ignore the growing distance. Our cozy Sunday mornings turned into Sam catching up at the office. Our dinners together became silent meals where he scrolled endlessly while I tried to fill the void with chatter. And Nora? She seemed to always be around, more than before. Dropping by the bakery just to check in, sending Sam memes, texting him directly about things she normally would have told me. When I confronted her about it, she laughed. "Relax, you're being paranoid. He's your husband, not some guy off the street." But deep down I knew. Something was shifting, something ugly. It felt like a storm was brewing just beyond the horizon, and I was the only one who could smell the rain. The night everything came crashing down is burned into my memory like a scar. It was a Friday, and I'd just wrapped up a brutal week at the bakery. 3 weddings back-to-back meant I was running on caffeine and sheer willpower. All I wanted was to come home, curl up on the couch, and maybe binge-watch a mindless series with Sam. But when I pulled into our driveway, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, the curtains drawn even though I usually left them open to let the sunset in. My chest tightened, but I brushed it off until I stepped inside. I'll never forget it. The faint smell of my vanilla candles mixed with something heavier, muskier. Laughter drifted from upstairs. My stomach sank. I called out, "Sam?" No answer. Just more laughter, muffled, intimate. With trembling hands, I climbed the stairs. Each step felt like walking into quicksand, and when I pushed open our bedroom door, there they were, Sam and Nora, my best friend, my husband, in my bed. For a second, my brain refused to process it. It was like watching strangers in a movie scene, except the sheets tangled around them were mine. The room was mine. The betrayal was mine. Nora's face went pale when she saw me. Sam jumped up, scrambling for words, stammering, "It's not what it looks like," the classic line. And I laughed. Not a normal laugh, but a broken, hollow sound that scared even me. I remember looking at Nora, my voice shaking but sharp. "After everything? After years of calling me your sister? You choose this?" She tried to speak, reaching for me, but I stepped back. The sight of her, bare and shameless in the space where I built my life, made my skin crawl. And Sam had the audacity to plead. "It was a mistake, it just happened. Please don't throw us away." "Us," he said, "us." In that moment, something inside me snapped. The grief, the anger, the betrayal, they crystallized into cold clarity. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at them, the 2 people who tore my world apart, and said, "You deserve each other." Then I walked out, and the sound of the door slamming behind me was the sound of my old life shattering into pieces. Walking out that door felt like stepping off a cliff, terrifying, but also strangely freeing. For days I wandered through the fog of betrayal, replaying that scene in my head until it made me sick. I barely slept, barely ate, but slowly, painfully, I realized something important. I had survived. I moved into a tiny apartment above the bakery. It wasn't glamorous, creaky floors, a leaky faucet, the faint smell of yeast that clung to everything, but it was mine, my space, my safe zone. And every morning when I walked downstairs to open shop, I reminded myself that at least I still had something pure. My passion, my craft. The bakery became my therapy. Kneading dough was like wringing out my anger. Frosting cakes was like painting new beginnings. Customers noticed too. "Your bread tastes happier," one old man joked. And in a way he was right, because every batch carried pieces of me putting myself back together. I threw myself into work. Expanded the menu. Added late-night dessert tastings, even hosted small community events. Word spread, and soon people weren't just coming for pastries. They were coming for the atmosphere, the warmth. For me, there were nights I'd lock up and just stand outside staring at the glowing sign above the door. My name, my legacy. And I'd think, they tried to break me, but here I am, rising. Of course, healing wasn't linear. I had moments where loneliness clawed at me, where I wondered if I'd ever trust again. But each time I reminded myself, I traded betrayal for freedom. And freedom, messy as it was, tasted a whole lot sweeter. And then, life had a funny way of rewarding me for surviving. A local magazine did a feature on hidden gems in town, and my bakery landed on the front page. Business doubled almost overnight. Suddenly, the same girl who once cried herself to sleep was hiring extra staff and watching strangers line up outside her door just to taste her cinnamon rolls. For the first time in a long time, I felt unstoppable. It's funny how life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. Months had passed since that night, and while I was busy building something beautiful out of my broken pieces, Sam and Nora were busy, well, destroying themselves. I didn't go looking for updates, but small towns have big mouths. Customers would whisper bits of gossip while sipping their coffee, and I pretended not to care, though deep down, each story felt like a quiet form of justice. Turns out, Sam and Nora moved in together. Picture perfect, right? Except it wasn't. Within weeks, people noticed them fighting in public, shouting matches outside the grocery store, cold stares at family gatherings. And the kicker? Nora quit her job at the salon to focus on her art, leaving Sam to carry the bills. The same man who once told me I dreamed too big was now drowning under the weight of someone else's dream. But karma wasn't done yet. One afternoon, a friend forwarded me screenshots. Apparently, Nora had been flirting with another guy online. Bold, reckless, sloppy. When Sam found out, he lost it. Word spread that she cheated, and suddenly their perfect little bubble burst. The cherry on top? Nora tried to come crawling back into my life. She showed up at the bakery one morning, mascara smudged, voice trembling. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I looked at her. This woman who once called me her sister, who stole the man I thought was my partner, and for the first time I felt nothing. No rage, no sorrow, just emptiness. And that emptiness was freedom. So I smiled, handed her a cupcake, and said, "Sweetheart, some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt." Then I walked back inside, leaving her standing on the sidewalk, holding the very thing she once tried to take from me, a piece of my world she'd never truly own. From that moment, I knew justice had been served, not by my hands, but by life itself. Looking back, I realized that night wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning. If Sam and Nora hadn't betrayed me, I might still be stuck in a loveless partnership, shrinking myself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Painful as it was, that betrayal pushed me out of the cage I didn't even know I was living in. My bakery flourished, but more importantly, so did I. I stopped apologizing for dreaming big. I stopped begging people to value me, and I started surrounding myself with those who already did. The laughter of my staff, the joy of loyal customers, the quiet evenings where I sat with a cup of tea and simply felt safe. Those were the real victories. Do I forgive Sam and Nora? Honestly, no. Not in the way people preach about forgiveness. But I don't carry the weight of anger anymore either. It's like setting down a heavy box after miles of walking. You don't need to destroy it. You just don't need to keep dragging it around. The truth is, sometimes justice doesn't look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like moving forward, thriving, and letting your success echo louder than their betrayal ever did. And that's exactly what happened. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. When people try to break you, don't waste your energy proving them wrong. Just build yourself back up so brightly that their shadows can't touch you anymore. Because the sweetest revenge isn't payback, it's peace. And every time I lock up the bakery, hearing the soft hum of the sign glowing my name, I smile. Because I know I didn't just survive, I rose.